right. I think the rate of people joining has slowed down a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I'm Christina Rosen with the Consortium for Service Innovation. Also on the call are my fellow consortium staff members, Matt Seaman, Sarah Feldman, and Jennifer Morgat. The consortium is a not-for-profit organization, and we exist thanks to the support of our members. Together, we work on shaping the future of customer engagement, including what everyone's talking about, the impact of AI on how we get work done. You can go to serviceinnovation.org for more information and for other upcoming events, including one happening later this week. On Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, you can join us for Service Innovation Insights, where we're going to review the work that the consortium and our members have done in 2025. And registration is open for our annual Service Innovation Summit. It's happening April 28th to the 30th in Scottsdale, Arizona. We hope to see many of you there. If not all of you, you're all welcome. Today, we're here to hear from SearchUnify. SearchUnify is a consortium-aligned tool. Their enterprise agentic AI enables you to embed agentic AI across your enterprise with AI agents engineered for your business functions. SearchUnify has been with us for quite a while. They've got deep relationships with consortium members and the companies that they work with. I'm pleased to welcome Michelle Stumpf, the head of knowledge management at Celonis. Michelle's a recognized leader with deep experience guiding companies through transformations, successful knowledge-centered transformations. She's also a certified KCS trainer who's helped many people succeed in their KCS journeys. And with her is Brian Corcoran, the regional sales manager and global support evangelist at SearchUnify. Brian's a KCS certified practitioner with over a decade of experience. He partners with global teams to reimagine how people, processes, and AI work together to deliver context-rich support. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. You're encouraged to put questions and comments in the chat. Brian and Michelle will answer in the flow of the presentation if it's applicable. We will have time for Q&A at the end. We are recording this event, and you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording in the next few days. With all that out of the way, I'm going to hand it over to you, Brian and Michelle.
All right. Thank you so much, Christina, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. No matter where you're joining, we really appreciate you carving some time to hear our story. And, we see a lot of names that are very recognizable to us. So both Michelle and I feel like we're among friends here. As questions come up, as we, start our discussion, please feel free to chime in. We're going to do our best to answer those questions as we go. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So key point there, just don't be shy. So Michelle, it's a pleasure to have you join us for this session. So Christina did a good job of giving a quick overview on who we are. So maybe we can go through that a little quickly, but let me go ahead and hand it over to you.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. And Brian, I totally agree. Lots of familiar names. So hi to everybody. I do feel like I'm joined a call today with a bunch of family members, and friends for sure. So thanks so much for everybody who's joined. For those who don't know me, I'm the head of knowledge management at Celonis, as Christina had mentioned. My entire career has been in knowledge management. I've held various roles from knowledge architect all the way up to leading the gig here at Celonis, trying to just really implement KCS and then take us, into, all these great transformations that AI is opening the doors into. So I'm looking forward to sharing my journey, our journey with everybody here today. And I'll just introduce Celonis briefly, right? So Celonis is a software company. We're actually the world's first process intelligence platform. I could not get that out. I was stumbling over those words. And what does that mean exactly, right? So our mission here is to really help companies make their processes work for people, businesses, and the planet as well. And what we do is provide software that helps enterprises truly understand how their processes are running and drive significant improvements fast, enabling them to capture hundreds of millions of dollars in business value. This kind of intelligence is really crucial when it comes to getting value out of the intelligence of the day, which is AI. It's interesting because when Celonis first reached out to me about the role, I was really excited about this because I drew so many correlations into what we do from a KCS perspective. So definitely excited to kind of jump over to the other side and really get my hands dirty here and lead them, as far as knowledge goes into that age of AI. So I'll hand it back over to you, Brian.
Thanks, Michelle. So for people who don't know me, I'm Brian Corcoran. I'm regional sales manager and global support evangelist, and basically the resident KCS geek at SearchUnify. I was basically the first US hire at SearchUnify about 6 years ago, and been working with a lot of KCS practitioners, such as Michelle, on their journeys, continuing to make knowledge the key asset of the organization. So similar to Michelle, I mean, I've spent most of my career with organizations that have been either sponsor or benefactor levels within the consortium. So even before my first day working in high tech, I joined a KCS training session that my company Stone Cobra at the time was running with David Case. So for me, KCS has always been integral to my career, and I get the benefit of pontificating KCS and the benefits and the people and process and technology aspects to a variety of practitioners over the years. And a little bit about SearchUnify, and I know it's a bit of a busy slide, but SearchUnify is a KCS v6 aligned platform. We started with cognitive search back in 2016, 2017. We're actually the byproduct of a company called Grazidi Interactive. So as opposed to just starting a technology company, starting a search company, we actually heard from our clients on the Grazidi side, hey, it'd be great if you guys could actually try to build a cognitive search solution. So that's actually what inspired us those years ago. And from there, we've actually branched out where, using large language models and generative AI, we basically have a platform that encompasses service and workplace, website, and e-commerce use cases. And then we've also built productivity applications over the years, such as Nobler, which we've done a webinar on before, and we will talk a little bit about that toward the end of this session, which is a intelligent knowledge capture app that will actually enable your agents to shift from a behavior of creating and capturing knowledge to actually curating those knowledge outputs. And then we also have focused heavily on agent productivity tools and co-pilots. And now, over the last couple of years, or especially in the last year, we focused on an agentic AI suite and helping our customers transition into that new autonomous era of customer support. Now, we know in order to do that, though, we can't abandon the key pillars that are making our customers successful today. And that still revolves around cognitive search, knowledge capture, and the agent productivity piece. So, a lot of organizations out there will talk about, hey, we wanted to throw generative AI on top of our knowledge base and start accelerating time to value for our customers. And what they found is that, sometimes it actually turns out that you'll be shoveling sand with a pitchfork if you end up doing it that way. So we've taken what seems like a straight line approach when you look back, but we've been very, very fortunate in deeply listening to our customers over the years and helping inform our product roadmap based on that. And we've also been recognized by G2 Crowd and Infotech as, a leader within the space as well. So and before we begin, I think, we just want to, recite, the affirmation from George Bernard Shaw is that within this presentation and the time that we spend together today, this should be a focus on sharing ideas. So if you have an apple and I have an apple and we exchange these apples, then you and I will still each have one apple. But if you have an idea and I have an idea and we exchange these ideas, then each of us will have two ideas. And that's exactly what we're looking for in this conversation. So, as ideas come, please feel free to chime in. We want to make sure that this is, an engaging session for everybody who's giving up some time to join us today. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and just set the table in terms of the business case and some of the roadblocks for AI adoption and enterprise support. And so, what we've seen in research that we've done with other industry bodies is that, or even talking to consortium members, is that AI's influence is all over the support organization. And fact of the matter, you can't go into a single conference, whether it's focused on support, knowledge, or even thinking about sales, marketing, without seeing every single booth blasting AI, in terms of their talk track and their marketing. And we could see here that in our world of support and knowledge management, that there's a variety of different ways that we are thinking about scaling that service delivery with AI or informing new offers with AI, right? Now, one of the key things to think about is that we have to ask ourselves how well companies are actually doing at integrating generative AI into their employee and customer workflows. And we've seen this stat I've seen it mentioned in the consortium work as well as, externally in a lot of different presentations, but the majority of AI pilots are still stuck in this experimental phase. And according to the MIT research, that only 5% of AI pilots are achieving a meaningful positive financial impact. Well, why is that, right? 3 things that we found is that number one, generic AI tools, especially large open platforms, don't integrate well within workflows. So it leads to limited transformational success. Number 2, success tends to come from products with domain specificity or deep workflow integration. The good news is that in our world of customer support, that is a prime use case that we can all pursue together. One of the things that we see on the vendor side of the consortium and with SearchUnify is that there are a lot of companies that are navigating this build versus buy, right? And it's always been that way. But when you see the power of these platforms, the accessibility to get started very quickly, a lot of companies are trying to deploy solutions that they build in-house. And what this report also backs up is that deploying productized vendor solutions for AI projects tends to be at least twice more successful than internally built solutions. And something Michelle and I have talked about, is that if you do build something internally, then you have to start competing with the market, right? So how do you keep up with the continued innovation that companies like SearchUnify are doing when your team internally, IT, they may have built something that actually delivered some baseline value, but how do you keep iterating that build where you're actually staying ahead of the curve? And Michelle, I know we talked about this. So, internally at Celonis, you guys had actually done some experimentation with building some of those in-house solutions, right?
We have, and we have several groups that are working on it exactly that. There's definitely challenges that come along with that, right? So, for example, they've built an AI they feel works appropriately. And the problem that we see is we ask about the data on the back end. Who is responsible for it? What is the process to make sure that the content is being consistently updated? There usually isn't one, right? The responses we've received back have been, well, so-and-so owns that knowledge. It's their responsibility to update it. As knowledge practitioners, you're probably all cringing with that, as I was as well, because we know when there's no accountability, when there's no knowledge process, things get forgotten when we're busy doing other things, right? So, having a tool that we're putting so much effort into that we want to really transform how we do business, that response isn't something that really fits well with me at all. And that's really why KCS is so strong in terms of, making sure that, it's built directly into the workflow, that everybody has a role, everyone's participating. The knowledge becomes stronger and stronger with those that we enable to participate. So, not having, that back end process does not help the AI. And then on top of that, it's usually that they focus on the output, but they don't actually focus on the back end. So being able to do that analysis of what's coming in, what do those conversations look like with the AI? Were they good? Were they bad? Is it something we need to pay attention to? Does knowledge need to be generated here? It's another major piece here, right? In terms of why I could see why 5% of pilots are not actually being successful.
Yeah, and something that I continue to think about is the quote that we hear at the member summit and among consortium practitioners, that if you're planning something that involves us, involve us in the planning. It has to include us, right? Yep. I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons why, you see that there's these great ideas, but like the Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan till they get hit in the mouth. And what happens after that? And I think that's the challenge that we're seeing right now with some of these internally driven generative AI projects. Even though it's built with the best intentions, Michelle, to your point, is that there has to be an intimate understanding of the workflows and how you continually evolve the quality of your knowledge so the inputs and the outputs actually, are on par with customer expectations. Yeah, and so that kind of lends to, some of the roadblocks that we've seen. So a reactive case-first culture, right? Especially support agents, they're just focused ideally on trying to solve the issue that is in front of them. A few other things to consider is that customer data needs to be cleaned up, right? We've continually heard that for the last 15 years. And now, I feel like a lot of folks out there or companies out there, when they talk about, oh, we can just use knowledge and funnel that into generative AI, you're not paying enough attention to knowledge and the quality of the knowledge before you actually pull it into these generative AI architectures. So we need customer data to be cleaned up. We also find, Michelle, to your point, that a lack of quality knowledge content or domain expertise coverage is also a key challenge, right? So if we don't know what's going into our generative AI, how are we supposed to know that we're generating the right outcomes, right? And then there could be internal resistance to using generative AI, but what we've also seen from reports like Menlo Security's report recently is that upwards of like 68% of employees out there are actually using shadow AI, right? So they're hopping into like a free version of ChatGPT or Perplexity, and they might actually be doing some of their work there. But the challenge is that that's basically siloed, in a personal account. How are these organizations actually able to see the value of how knowledge workers are using generative AI unless they actually own the solution, right? So I think it goes back to, if we design the solution, if we plan it with knowledge workers, that if it involves us, include us, then some of these challenges go away. And then lastly, there's some ineffective processes to effectively utilize AI capability. So kind of just going for like the home run shot right off the bat, trying to just say, look, let's dump our knowledge in and let's use this as a co-pilot. Let's use this, as an agentic solution. There needs to be some iterative steps before we get there, right? So, in terms of roadblocks, it's funny that, 12 years ago, I would get asked about how do we scale knowledge management? How do we help our employees and our customers and our partners find the right information at the right time to perform their jobs? The answer then was invest in your KB and clean up your data, right? And 12 years later, we still have the same or similar folks saying, hey, we really want to deploy Gen AI to help our customers and employees and partners be more productive and proficient. What should we focus on? And the answer's just been the same, right? Invest in your KB and clean up your customer data. So I'm sure that this resonates with a lot of folks on this call that have been saying these things internally, probably for years. And Michelle, I'm sure you're one of them. So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It all starts with having that foundational knowledge base, right? And the one that you can actually rely on because the processes are in place, people are participating, content is not getting stale and things that are just gone left, unfinished, right? That's the investment, right? And that's the investment we've made here. We've coached people. We've, added KDEs into the mix as well, given them ownership over their domain. It's all about, building that strong foundation of that knowledge base. But the question, to your point, Brian, it hasn't changed in so many years. And even with AI, it's still coming back to, have you invested in your knowledge base and cleaned up your data yet, right?
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things to think about is that because all generative AI outputs are derivative by nature, they have to be coming from somewhere, right? You want them coming from your knowledge base, or maybe there's other corpuses of information like documentation, academy content that's also blessed for reuse and self-service, where those things are definitely powerful for helping increase the capacity and quality of our self-service experiences. But if we, just to throw it back, I'm sure, a couple years ago, we all saw, the solution like Lensa, where you could take a picture, you could basically then, use Lensa's outputs to make yourself, look a certain way or look like a wizard or look like a Jedi, for example. But that was all trained from art that was publicly available on the internet, right? So in order to get the right sort of output, we needed good inputs and we needed grounding in terms of the content that's used for generation. And so if we apply this to our world in terms of, garbage in, garbage out, we need quality input to enable the right outputs and deliver these agentic driven interactions at scale. So, the example I'm going to, anybody who's probably age of 35, 40 or older, remember short circuit, needing input. This is like what's kind of in the back of my mind every day now, is that if we don't have the right inputs, how do we mean to deliver the right outputs? It's almost impossible. So with that being said, there's some groundwork that Michelle and the Celonis team have actually laid before they start turning on these generative AI solutions. And one of the reasons why is they recognize that they only really get one shot to do this correctly. And if they fall short, customers are not going to trust that sort of experience if they try to redeploy it again and again. So Michelle, why don't I go ahead and turn it over to you and we can talk a little bit about the groundwork that's been laid. And before we even get to the groundwork, let's talk about what you actually were able to achieve. Then we'll take a step back and we'll talk through the journey.
Absolutely. So, yeah, before we get into that groundwork, there are a few outcomes that we've seen in the meantime, and we're really just getting started here. We definitely had a lot of challenges that we faced, and I'll get into those in just a minute. But what we've seen so far is a 400% increase in discoverable knowledge. And what I mean by that is that we started off with knowledge that was literally buried behind our community. It was not easily accessible. I had a hard time finding it. So if you could imagine that I couldn't find it, how do you think the customer experience looked when knowledge was really very hidden or even non-existent? We also have seen a tremendous increase in case deflection as well since our support portal went live earlier this year. So, through bringing knowledge available front and center for our customers, and then also we embedded enterprise search directly into our case form as well. That definitely helped us with that. And then through enterprise search, we discovered that 40% of our customer issues were actually resolved before they even navigated to the case form. So, that's really what it's all about. That's what we're driving towards. And, we only have up to go from here, but very exciting with what we've seen so far with a new portal and enterprise search with KCS driving it behind it and then adding the AI layer right on top of it. So definitely, a lot of hard work that the entire team over here at Celonis has been a part of for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And let's go ahead and just kind of backtrack a little bit. So we talked about the outcomes that you've been able to generate or achieve so far. And we could see that there's obviously immense value to taking that knowledge that was there the entire time and actually exposing it in the right way to the right customer at the right time based on their intent, right? Now, let's talk about some of those challenges that you saw. We basically identified 5 key pillars in terms of what the challenges were. And why don't we go ahead and talk about this, and then we'll go through, how we actually started addressing those challenges.
Absolutely. So first was content silos, and I'm sure that all of you are familiar with this one, right? So, content that is used by customers, used internally as well, doesn't matter. Audience doesn't matter, right? We had silos everywhere from customer support specific knowledge base that was buried and stuck in Salesforce to documentation that was all by itself. Cases, of course, and all of that documentation, Academy having its own footprint, if you will, and also community as well. And there are many, many others. So, first of all, we had to address, content silos, but then also a siloed search experience. So looking at this from the experience internally with our support engineers, but also externally with our customers, different searches, different results. You literally have to know where to go and how to search all kinds of different tools to be able to get the results that you're looking for. Imagine how time consuming something like that is. Another element is agent inefficiency and fatigue, right? So, not always knowing where to look, forgetting all of the sources that are available because they are so vast. And then also the fatigue kicked in as well when we're working on KCS. We're doing all this work, and yet we're not able to surface the knowledge to customers in a relevant way. Which caused that fatigue where we weren't getting enough of that time back to say, hey, look at everything we've achieved through KCS. You can work on more complex issues. We can get you involved in different project work. By the way, the AI piece, the KDE piece, all things that require that time. So, seeing that fatigue was definitely not, not ideal. Poor self-service outcomes, of course, is another thing. I just described that just a moment ago, right? First of all, not even being able to find knowledge so far buried beneath community threads really was not a great or optimal customer experience at all. Left our knowledge really pretty much unused despite the effort of creating it and maintaining that knowledge. And then one KCS hurdle, that I always like to call out here is, having to balance priorities on both the support operations side and the KCS side often meant that, knowledge tasks had to take a back seat, right? So my role was kind of split between the two. As much as I try to prioritize the KCS piece and the knowledge piece across the team, there's a lot of things to do, a lot of moving parts. The operations piece was usually the one that was burning that needed the attention. So that's really was definitely an issue that we needed to work to resolve. So those are the 5 key challenges that we saw. Believe me when I tell you there were others, but these were the biggest ones that we felt that addressing these would help to address the rest.
And I think the challenge that you talked about with KCS hurdles and balancing the priorities of support ops and KCS program management, I mean, even just by giving a thumbs up for anybody on the call, are you in a similar position to that where you're support ops, you're also the solo KCS program manager? Like, how do you balance those things, right? I mean, in terms of, the conversations I've had with Michelle is that at the end of the day, support ops is always kind of taking priority, which is not to say that KCS was not important, but just one person, so many hours in the day. How do you allocate your time, and try to make as much progress on both of those areas of focus as you can? So with that being said, now we have a couple key focus areas. So why don't we go ahead and talk through what we actually did in terms of being able to
Absolutely.
achieve those outcomes we discussed a few minutes ago.
By the way, there were way too many thumbs up that just came up when you asked that question. So my heart goes out to all of you. Maybe we should form a support group of sorts. But anyway, so getting into what we actually did and all exciting stuff that's happened over here in the past couple of years. So, we split these into two categories, one being technology, the other one being people and process. So the technology side, always like to start with this side. It's the fun side, right? Of course. We did a complete portal redesign. So what we did was we really gave support a home. And we brought knowledge, customer support knowledge front and center, but we didn't leave everything else behind, right? We made all of the content equal. So we pulled content in from all of the other customer facing sources, Academy, community, our documentation, just to name a few, because, my golden rule that I live by is I don't care where the content for the customer comes from. I'm happy when the customer gets their response. So if it comes from a knowledge base article, great. But if it comes from another source, even better, right? So let's get the customer the information they need when they need it, where they're working. So that's was really the heart and soul behind our portal redesign. And then on top of that, in order to do that, we needed to really implement an enterprise search. So we implemented SearchUnify's cognitive search platform to be able to do that, pull all of those sources together. And I'll talk more about that when I show you the actual portal in just a few minutes. But then on the people and process side, we've really heavily invested in both our KCS coaching program and our knowledge domain expert or KDE program. So with the coaching program, what we've done is we have enabled everyone to get in and participate with the PAR engineers so they can actually see every moment of the day. How are they doing? Where are they following the process? Where are they missing the process? And giving the coaches access to that as well so that they're able to see and help guide through those coaching sessions. But we didn't just include knowledge with the PAR. Knowledge and case handling go hand in hand. If you are not following the process with the cases, if you are not adding good data to the actual case fields, like talking about what the actual problem is versus what the symptoms are that the customer has given you, how can we expect quality knowledge base articles to come from that? So, our PAR both covers the cases and the knowledge at the same time. And then, of course, we implemented knowledge quality in the actual moment where they're creating the knowledge. So they have knowledge quality and all of the checks that they have included, they're actually on the article itself. So they're able to see what makes a quality article. They can actually self-score articles as well, so they can keep track of what they're doing and what they have yet to do. So we really heavily invested in all of that to make sure that people were enabled and they felt supported. On the KDE side, we've recently have really dialed it up a notch with our KDE program where what we have running our KDE weeks here. So we have KDEs rotating where they spend the entire week doing KDE activities. So, we've started off to really stabilize our foundation here, where they are going through their knowledge base. They're getting more intimately involved with the knowledge that's in their domain area. How can you be a KDE if you don't know, what you're actually dealing with here, right? So, we've gone through all of that initially, and we'll be taking that even forward even more. And we'll talk a little bit more about how I'm going to do that when we get into looking at some of SearchUnify's analytics as well. Because from a KDE perspective, it's all about driving deeper value, right? So yes, they are still doing KCS. Yes, they are still participating, but they're participating at a much higher level when they're working on those KDE activities, because we want to get to a place where we're looking at how the knowledge is actually impacting our case volume, and where we still have case volume, where we are missing the mark on things. We want to make sure that we're taking care of those things first and making sure that the time is well spent, and not spent on doing, I don't want to say frivolous things, but you could find a million things to do in a knowledge base and never be done. It's about doing the right thing. So, on the people and process side, we're addressing all of the needs here and making sure we continue to support all of our support engineers as well at the same time.
So with all that being said, right, why don't we go ahead and take a quick walkthrough and show everybody on this call, the redesigned Celonis support portal and what that looks like for your customers when they have an inhibition or prohibition using your products.
Absolutely. So I'm going to steal the sharing now. Okay, excellent. Okay, and you can let me know if you see my screen. You're seeing the portal, correct? Okay, excellent. Yes. Zoom has not highlighted the window for some reason today. But anyway, so this is our newly redesigned support portal. It's actually our second iteration. We made some changes from the first based on feedback that we had received. I just want to throw a shout out there to SearchUnify's parent company, Grizzly Interactive. They have been an absolute pleasure. They actually went through the whole redesign. We partnered with them to do so. They've designed, I don't even know how many, several hundred portals at this point, but I just wanted to mention that. But what we have here is our support portal. I've already logged in, but you can actually access our portal. Everything is public. It's support.celonis.com, so feel free to take a look. What we actually did was we identified the top 5 issues of where we received the most cases, our top 5 most popular topics, if you will, across the Celonis platform. And we've called these out, these 5 excuse me, thumbnails across the bottom, where you can click to learn more, and it'll take you directly to the knowledge for each one of those areas. Below that, Grizzly created this great widget in which it is actually returning recommended articles for me. So based on my history, and since I logged in, it knows who I am. It's recommending things to me that I may not have been aware of. So, just a really eye-catching widget that we really liked and wanted to make sure that we included. We also wanted to make sure we kept our customers up to date with what's going on around Celonis. So, we're always looking to link and bring in the other teams and groups across Celonis that have customer-facing data, like, Academy, community, documentation, et cetera. So, we're linking to all of these relevant areas. Where can I go for product updates, for support news and updates, Academy news, et cetera. And on the right-hand side, when you think about it, people need training when they're using a platform such as this. So linking our top roles that our customers have, data analyst, engineer, process, and Celonis lead, so they get targeted training based on what their actual role is. So we wanted to make sure we included all of that right on our homepage. But wanted to also show you as well, if I start, running a search, and I also pulled up a search result already, just to save some time here, but wanted to get to what we wanted to look at today, right? So, after running a search, and I ran this search here, and one thing I did want to just point out here, one, feature I really truly love, and everybody has given us such great feedback about it, is if I start typing this, it's going to give me suggested results. And it actually showed me what I've searched for in the past as well. So, if I go ahead and run that search, what we've done is one of I would say my top requirement is that I had a commingled results page. I didn't want to come to a search results page where then I had to pick the source. That was part of the way there from where we were, but I wanted to go even farther than that. So, that's why we have this all content tab. Like I said to you a little while ago, I don't care where the knowledge or the content comes from. As long as our customers are served, that's really what the goal is, right? So, if you look here on this particular page, I'm going down these results. I have not only knowledge base articles, but I have Academy here. I have community threads. This one's great. Best practice, exactly what I'm looking for, right? Coming from the community. So they may have started in support, but they may end up at the community, and that's fine as long as they are served, as long as they find what they need, then we're good. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what we've done here. We also have each one of the major sources identified in tabs across the top. So if I know I'm looking for knowledge, I could simply just navigate there. Or if I want to see what's in the documentation, I can go directly there too. And all of this is going to take me directly to either the Academy site or the documentation site, right? I'm not indexing things to hold people on the portal here. It's sending them to the source where they need to go. But the beauty there is that what we've also done is we've implemented the SearchUnify search on the other sources as well. So, if we take a look at the Academy, for example, this is, of course, you've got the same Celonis branding, but this is how theirs appears, right? So we actually do have, and these aren't called out specifically, but if I hover over and look at the link, we've got Academy here. I've got community here, this one on the right-hand side. Knowledge is here as well. So everything is being represented in that commingled search result page, but still giving us the flexibility of using the tabs across the top or the sources on the left-hand side if the customer exactly, knows exactly where they want to go. Same thing with our documentation site. For example, I pulled up the search result as well, where you can see, the same thing happen. And we have additional categorization. I have taxonomy. So when you click into, a specific area, if I go back to my search results here, if I go to my knowledge tab here, this is actually pulling up the first level of my taxonomy. So how my content is actually organized. So if I wanted to narrow down from here, I could just pick data extraction, and that's going to show me just the data extraction results and further narrow down my search. So, we're always looking in ways of how do we get the customer the content they need exactly when they need that. But, this is the search that we've put on the portal itself, on, the Academy and documentation sites as well. But what we also did was if I go ahead and create a case, we've integrated it here as well. We previously had a search that was integrated that did not work well at all to pick up or to deflect cases, if you will. But with the SearchUnify search, as soon as I start typing, you'll notice that the right-hand box automatically reloaded to reveal any of the results. So the same commingled page will be here where you get knowledge, Academy, community, documentation, right? All of our customer sources are coming into this one search here. And then they can actually, if they got down to the bottom, they could go to the search result page itself. So this is enabling us to more deeply deflect cases. If they've already gotten here, it means they need to open up a case, right? At this point, this is our last effort in saying, here, we can help serve you with the knowledge and hoping that we have something that's available that does meet their needs. But if not, we're going to get that on the back end with our KCS process that we've built into the workflow. Trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to cover here. I think I covered it all.
Well, we did get a quick question from Jeff, and he was
Excellent.
asking if you've enabled generative answering on the case form itself, right? So if we're trying to
Great question.
further increase case interception, as Matt had eloquently put it, that would be the next logical step, right? So that's one of the things that's on your roadmap in short order.
It is on our roadmap, and two things when it comes to the case form. So if I go back to that form here, so one of the things that we're doing into Q1 is that you can see that my case form, and by the way, there are more fields that pop up depending on what you choose. It's really heavy. We're asking a lot of our customers. So part of what we're getting into next year is more personalization efforts, know our customers. I've logged in, they know who I am. They know what products I have, right? So also, if I'm asking a question, if I have a problem and I'm describing it, one, why are you asking me for a subject? I'm titling cases here. Let me just describe the issue. So, we have plans and we've already have this mocked up and in planning for next quarter, as I mentioned, where we want a very smart AI-driven case form. So not only will we ask the customer a question, but we're going to let the AI categorize what service, what product area. I have to pick a service to get a product area here. We're going to go ahead and let the AI do that for our customer, and then they can simply confirm if it's correct and fix it if it's not correct. But then also, I'm also asking business impact. How much of an impact is this case to your customer? What's the span of impact, right? Is it one person experiencing this? Is it a whole team? Is it widespread? What is, the span here? And this is really giving us our severity of the actual case. So based on the description and based on what we're asking and conversations back and forth with the AI, we want all of this pre-filled for the customer so they can simply confirm or change if something was not understood correctly instead of asking them to go through each one of these actual fields one at a time and pick this. This gets really cumbersome really quick when you're creating a case. So that's one piece of our AI plans. And the other one, yes, will be layering in that AI generated AI search results right on top of the search results. And that's part of where we're headed towards, wanting to see that in Q1.
Awesome. Michelle, we did get another question just to address this really quickly, but question was curious to know if the resources already consumed by the customer in their journey before submitting a case is populated to the agent, right? So this is something that you and I have discussed is
Yes.
There's basically two schools of thought on that, right? Number one, we're already doing some of that. But another thing we're talking about is saying, look, there's documentation property, academy property. When customers are going to all these different digital self-service properties, how can we make sure that that holistic journey across multiple interfaces is delivered to the support agent? So then they can say,
Yes.
it's not just about, hey, I saw what you consumed in the support portal, but I saw that you had done some searches and documentation. I saw you engage with content through the community or through the academy interface. So to help answer that question, those things are being done, but I think that there's some really exciting things that we're doing by treating all of these self-service interfaces as an overall ecosystem, as opposed to just looking at the support portal. But yes, at a high level, those things are being done today, and there's some exciting things coming soon.
Yes, for sure. Those are that whole ecosystem journey mapping, if you will. That is something that we have plans. It's on our roadmap. And then also enabling the engineers to actually see that journey as well.
Yeah, Ruby says
it
sounds like we need a part two is what Ruby was saying, which I totally agree with that. So why don't we go ahead and just jump in? There's a couple, we need to be cognizant of time here, but there are a couple key analytics reports that have been very important for your journey in terms of understanding the customer journey, but also how are we recognizing the value of reusable knowledge versus equipping our KDEs with ways to improve knowledge where there are disconnects, right? So why don't we go ahead and just jump in? There's basically 3 slides here that we'll talk a little bit about what's coming next, and we'll try and end it still with some time for an open Q&A. And Rick, we saw your question. We'll try and get to that as well. So Michelle, this is the customer journey visualization, if you're able to see my screen. It's basically showing every single search, every single click, every navigational journey that customers may be taking even without search, right? And this basically gives us a high level view in terms of how are our customers using our self-service ecosystem. So, were there any specific points of visibility, that, you were looking for before you got access to this report, maybe in, years past or thinking about other platforms, for example?
So prior to SearchUnify, I was completely blind to what customers were actually doing on our portal. So down to the point where I did not even know how many customers were actually visiting the portal at all. So now having the world opened up here where we can actually see this. And, one of the biggest draws to me for SearchUnify was in fact this type of visualization where we're really able to see what the journey is, what the experience is, where are people hitting our case form? Are they successful with search? And then are they still going on to the case form? What does that look like? But then even more importantly, 2 things. One, enabling the engineers, like I said, so they can actually see for that particular customer that got to that point that they opened the case. Well, what did they do before they got there? That's all really relevant information that helps that engineer just really provide a better experience to the customer. Know your customer, right, is one of the biggest things. And then on top of that is enabling KDEs, right? So, KDEs have a lot of work to do. They're able to drive deep value to what we're doing, but they can't do that without data. They can't do that without the understanding. So, this is one of those reports here where, we we can actually see where have we been effective, what articles actually help deflect those cases, and how many cases they actually help deflect. This is, when you think about it from a KCS perspective, this is why we capture what we're capturing, is so that we can deflect other cases that are either the same thing or similar from coming in. So this is one of those reports that made it so much more helpful for KDEs to be able to see, where should I focus my efforts, right? We want to recognize value of these articles for sure. And then if you go to the next slide, it's where we failed, right? So what articles actually failed to present cases from coming in? If cases came in because article did not serve its purpose, those are the articles we need to focus on, right? That needs to bubble up to the top of the list of things that we need to do. So SearchUnify made it really easy to get those to the top. So we're able to get those to our knowledge domain experts, to the particular engineer who actually resolved the case, so that we're able to get that to them. Is there any detail here, something that's missing? How do we figure out what we need to add to this particular article? We need to go to the experts for that, right? We can help identify what we need to do, but they actually ultimately need to identify what the fix is. And these reports certainly help get us there.
Yeah, and I think that, these reports, understanding how we connect our customers with reusable knowledge, how we see the, ultimately what we want to see is the change in support demand as it relates to our assisted support function, right? So we can imagine, a lot of folks out there who have, done well with KCS, done well with knowledge, you've seen some of this shift, right? And Michelle, I'd say we're probably in the current state's right in the middle as of now, with some goals to get to that desired state. But, for just at a high level, like, you're seeing kind of a noticeable trend in terms of, shifting some of these resolutions out to customers where they'd rather see them, which is in self-service.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what it's all about, right? Is to be able to, just really free up time, create better value of the work we've done in the past. So that's, getting that case deflection, that's really where we're focused on for sure. Sorry, I was just responding to the chat too.
No, I saw that. Good question, Brian. Okay, and so just to come back, we talked about, these outcomes, and we changed the text from case deflection to case interception. So I think that, when people review this, we can see that that's a definition that we want to start using more frequently. And Michelle, I think the bottom line point, what we've talked about is that we're pivoting from a case first, or even a case form first behavior for our customers, where now they're actually coming to the support portal to discover knowledge, as opposed to just accelerating through self-service, bypassing it just because they wanted to get a one-to-one, assisted interaction.
Absolutely. I mean, and as I said before, we were like, support didn't really have the presence that I would have liked to have seen or expect from a support team at a platform company like Celonis, right? So, first of all, breaking free, if you will, and being able to, have a support portal that's specifically mainly support, but then brings everyone together. We've really been able to change customer behavior, which is great. That's what we were looking for. But we also wanted to empower customers to self-serve and be able to find beyond the knowledge of what they needed. So, really, changing the culture here from a self-service perspective for sure.
Cool. So now that we've talked about all that we've done to build the foundation, start kind of like layering those different aspects of people, process, and technology, and we're doing all this to set the stage for generative AI, the key question is, what comes next? And I think, just really quickly, this quote from Abraham Lincoln, I never thought I'd be applying Abraham Lincoln to generative AI. But what we've seen is that, the way that Michelle and I have talked about the journey that Celonis is taking and really they've been spending this time sharpening the axe so they can cut down the tree the right way, the most efficient way, when they actually start tackling generative AI and deploying this either for their support agents or, more importantly, within self-service. So, Michelle, I think we can kind of talk about where we started versus where we're going. The slide's pretty self-explanatory, but we can see that what we've done is enterprise search, and then there's a few exciting things that are in the works before we fully get to more of an autonomous, self-service experience. So why
Absolutely. So yeah, you want to go to the next slide? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So really quickly, the key goal, right, is just achieving that shift left strategy that's sustainable for the customers and support organizations. So, when I think to, folks that have used this slide before, big shout out to Ryan Matthews and, putting some pie into the overall value calculations. Like this has been, I think a very, very strong idea that a lot of knowledge practitioners are really latching onto is that knowledge is the engine that will shift us from cost per case over to cost per answer. And so let's talk about a couple non-Gen AI things that you're doing or plan to do, and then we'll talk about the Gen AI piece, and we'll try to wrap that up in 3 to 5 minutes, try to have a
Yep.
couple questions. I think we've done a good job of addressing those as we go, but any questions that come up, we'll be sure to try and answer those. So how are we getting there using non-generative AI first?
Yeah. So the first thing is enabling ecosystem tracking of our customer journeys. And in order to get there, we needed to get some of the other sources on board. So documentation, academy, community, right? So we've got documentation and academy on board. So now we're able to turn on that ecosystem tracking so that we can truly see end-to-end customer journey. As much as I don't mind sending folks to, academy for training or docs if they need documentation, I'd like to see, the whole picture, right? The whole world, who's coming to us from where's their starting point, right? So we can make better decisions. The customer journey handoff to support agents, right? We mentioned that one a little while ago as well. Being able to provide them with more information so that they're better equipped to answer the customers, knowing where the customer came from. Personalization, is another piece as well. Being able to use all the data that we know about the people who are logging in, right? Whether they are customers or partners, or even we call them Celonauts here. We call ourselves Celonauts, so or employees, right? Knowing, who someone is and personalizing that experience for them. And then, of course, additional sources and resources contributing to knowledge, right? So, first of all, there's lots of other sources of great content, strong content across Celonis. So determining what we can actually get into our knowledge base, make customer facing is only going to create a stronger knowledge base than we have today. But then also getting additional expertise. There's a vast sea of experts across Celonis that are not in customer support. So, I want to expand KCS to those other groups, engineering being one of them, right? Getting them involved. They have a deeper understanding of knowledge and of the issues itself, right? They can give more background to knowledge-based articles. So getting them into the mix is only going to better suit all of us, them included, as things that we cannot solve actually go to engineering. If, they leave customer support and they get sent to engineering for resolution. So it's kind of, like help us to help you, and we're all going to help each other and help our customers in return. So a lot to do from a non-Gen AI perspective, which brings us to the Gen AI piece, right? So actually just today, our agent copilot went live in Salesforce, which I'm very excited about. Our whole team did a tremendous amount of work to get this to where it is today. We've got knowledge, documentation, academy content loaded into that. Of course, all of our knowledge processes are backing that up. Our knowledge domain experts are going to be hands-on in completely, just reviewing all of those conversations and driving the evolution of how this is working and the success here. Another thing I'm very excited about, and it's currently in the works, is we are doing a proof of concept on the Nobler tool from SearchUnify. So hoping to have that up and running in the next couple of weeks. And this one really excites me because we're going to be able to shift our KCS process in the workflow just a bit to bring in that AI knowledge creation. So where the creation element that we currently have today turns into more of curation. So, having engineers validate the article that came from the case, and then actually being able to either submit for publishing or publishing if they're a publisher, is really going to cut down on the time that it takes to create these articles. And everything we've done, by the way, leads up to being able to do this, especially when we look at the PAR and have included the case and the knowledge in the PAR side by side, so that we know they're actually doing the right thing in the case and detailing the right thing in the right area so that all of this comes together and works really well. And then some other things that we're doing is we have another AI tool coming on board where we can actually do case quality auditing and they're going to assist us with the PAR automation as well. So looking forward to that for early Q1. A lot of exciting things. And then on top of that, KCS coach enablement, helping the KCS coaches in the moment determine, hey, what should I focus on? Help me with this, or how do I have this conversation? People often tell me that I could have these KCS coach conversations in my sleep without batting an eye, but sometimes they don't know what the right response is. So, want to address what they should be addressing, right? How do they prioritize what they should address with the person that they're coaching? But then how do they have these conversations? Keeping it positive, keeping it where we're not dinging people, right, for doing something wrong. We're looking to enable and build skills with what we're doing here. And the last one is that agentic self-service that we talked about a little while ago, and the case form as well, bringing in those AI components. So looking at most likely late Q1 there. If we can do it earlier, we certainly will.
Well, I think that was a great overview, especially kind of going through the non-Gen AI and Gen AI initiatives that we have in the coming weeks and months. And we really thank everybody for staying on to this point. We still have over 100 people on the session, and so we have only a couple minutes for Q&A. I think we've done a pretty good job of answering questions as we've gone, but one question that came up was from Mary over at Rico USA, and she's asking, what attributes from the case are you including in PAR? So, Michelle, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can certainly answer that. So there are several things that we're looking at. One is, and I still have my case form up on my screen, so that helps me. Product and service area that's our routing. And not only is it our routing for our cases, getting to the correct L2 or even our L3 or engineering, but it's also our knowledge taxonomy as well. We've kept everything so that we really can compare apples to apples. So if they are not doing those things correctly, we need to make sure that that's part of our part, right? That these things are set correctly in the case that they've verified them. Also, did they validate the severity with the customer? I'm sure that we all know customers will mark something with a higher level of severity than what it truly is, or priority, right? So that's something that we look at. If they have, captured the customers, the business impact, if it's not, specified in the case when it was received. So things of that nature. Did they appropriately fill out the fields? A lot of our cases end up closed without any resolution being written in the case whatsoever. They're not in the case fields, but they end up in the emails to the customer. They're trapped in those emails. So, we're really looking at a lot of those details of the case. If you'd like to talk more about that, I'm certainly happy to share. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, or directly if you have my contact information. Certainly happy to chat about that more.
I think that's our time together. Thank you so much, Brian and Michelle, for what is a really kind of very compelling, but also what I love about your story and about your journey is that it is AI flavored, but it is not AI first. It's all of AI is a tool that enables us to get some of this good work done. And it sounds like you've really put a ton of time into planning and executing a really amazing strategy. So well done to both of you. Thank you again for your time. Thanks to everyone on the call for attending. In the next few days, you'll get an email with a link to the recording of this session. And it sounds like maybe Michelle, Brian, and I need to talk about a follow-up session to hear more about Celonis' journey in the future.
I think a part 2 is definitely necessary, so sign us up for the sequel.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Sounds good.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, everyone. Take care.